David from Thumbscore, welcome to the Assignment of Benefits podcast.
Nick, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
David, we start all of these recordings by allowing our guests a little bit of an elevator pitch. So to start off, David Thorne, who are you? What is it that you do?
Nick, we're Thumbscore. We focus on workers in the workplace, lowering their financial stress, really addressing mental health and helping them to make informed, better decisions about their benefits and anything really that's financial insurance in their world. We do this with a combination of behavioral science and our recommendation engine, but really engaging them. We recognize everyone's financial situation and behavior persona is as unique as their thumbprint. That's the name Thumbscore. I tell you what, we're learning every day to just hear and understand the people, the hundreds of thousands of people we support right now. And as much as our engine has to learn, Nick, we have to learn even more. One of the things I learned recently is just the fact that everyone touching these workers, telling them what to do, really isn't listening to them. And yet, at the end of the day, when it comes to things like benefits, guess who's paying for most or all of it? That employee is. Guess who has the least amount of decision impact? The employee. And so we want to bring the power of that back to the employee and really help them move forward with confidence, with lower stress, and with a much more free approach to their work.
Yeah, especially in a digital world, David, we're get bombarded not only with non-financial stuff, but the financial stuff as well. It is overwhelming, and just having I mean, I have to make that decision every year when I'm selecting benefits, but even like my 401k, you're like, well, what do I select? I mean, they've had to even dumb that down, David, to a point where now, and for a lot of 401ks, you don't even get to make the decision. Like you're okay, you're 30 years from retirement, we're gonna pop you into this 2030 retirement package. You don't have to make any decisions. It's going the other way. So it is very stressful. Can you give us a little bit of background around like when did you first notice this? Like when did you first realize like this is an issue that someone's going to have to try to solve because it's kind of run haywire and it's out of control?
Yeah, that's a good point when it comes to 401ks or benefits in general. The average worker spends what, 18 minutes a year, and half that time is asking their coworker, Nick, hey, Nick, what are you going to pick? Well, Nick's picks might
What
not fit
fun.
me, but who cares, right? I'm going to go with those anyway and maybe make a couple of changes. It's 20 pages of this, it's a matrix of this. There's nothing that's really there just in simple form. Here's what this is, here's why you need it or don't need it, or here's how much you might need. When it comes to medical, over 50% of employees are highly dissatisfied. They will leave their workplace because they feel like either they picked the wrong plan or they had no good plans to pick from, and so they have the wrong plan today. We first noticed this. Our journey started a little simpler than that. Back when the pandemic started, we kind of relooked as a team at what do we want to be when we grow up. We're supposed to be the great innovators, right? All of us approach Nick like we're going to save the world, we're going to bring about world peace or save world hunger, figure it out. Ours was financial literacy. Where we arrived at that was we sat in a driveway, all spread out, and we said, "Hey, um, there are only three things we feel like we're really good at: quantum computing." I know you're thinking, "Where's this going?" Hang with me here. Quantum computing, behavioral science, and personal finance. And we looked at each other after a while. We realized that all triangulates into this way to address financial literacy. So that's where we thought we were going. We created something that was like a personal financial GPS. You
Hmm.
spend a couple minutes, tell us about yourself. And then we realized behavioral science wasn't just the shortcut to understanding what someone needed and to hear them where they're at, but also the quick, precise, but yet concise way to give them guidance wherever they might be. It's kind of like your GPS, Nick. You're driving and you make a wrong turn. I make wrong turns all the time. Recalculating, it's okay. We're going to get you across this minefield to pure financial health for you in your situation. So we started off with that idea of financial literacy and pandemic, and then we're like, okay, that was our first innovation. Where do we fit? How do we actually impact the most people? Because our mission at Thumbscore is to help everyone improve their financial health. That's our overall mission, and that means we want to impact a lot of people. So we hit this point of where do we really fit, And we brought in all these executives from insurance carriers and brokers, and we said, hey, and all of them said you fit in the benefit space, but we knew we didn't want to be just another financial wellness product out there. You pick us or pick something else because we felt like what we had was so important, so special that we want to be able to touch everyone. So what we ended up doing is realizing our first foot in the door with the user, with the worker, with these human beings is to help them with their benefits and then take them on the rest of that financial health journey to financial freedom, financial stability, and where they need to be. So that's where we started. Where we ended up was really continues to be a journey for us. But along the way, we've learned a few things. We've learned the power of behavioral economics. We have one of the top 10 behavioral economists in the world on our team. I'm proud of that because that's part of my job is to assemble a good team and help lead a good team. And they've said something about behavioral economics about people. The number one thing you can count on people to do is nothing. And so that inertia is really our greatest challenge. How do we help people help themselves?
Yeah. So from an evolutionary standpoint, doing nothing was actually a good strategy because you never knew where your next meal was going to come from. And the brain is a powerful computer, but requires a lot of energy. So doing nothing is actually like a good strategy in an environment where you might be hungry for an extensive period of time. In modern days, doing nothing is a terrible strategy. And we have plenty of food, right? So we can keep feeding that computer. You don't want to feed it too much, but you can keep feeding it. So for the audience that's listening to this, just in case they don't really have a firm grip on behavioral economics, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Some of the academics around that. What behavioral economics has essentially done for society, highlighting biases and other stuff. Why behavioral economics is so valuable, that humans don't necessarily need to understand it, but you do, and it's vital to your business model.
Oh, that feels like a loaded question, Nick. I'll do my best to answer that. Um, there are 12 key methodologies in behavioral economics that we use at Thumbscore. And some of those might be familiar to people, but behavioral economics really offers numerous insights into how humans think, decide, and act. So when we craft a nudge of any kind of touch, whether it's for marketing or business communication or personal use, we often use or apply a behavioral economics principle without even knowing it. The better, the more precise we use it, the more effective it is. And so you think about a specific audience. Maybe it's a family of four about to celebrate Christmas. Maybe it's a single mother with a child trying to figure out how to make it a good Christmas. There's lots of different audiences and different spaces. And so ways to touch them include different method. A couple of those methodologies you're probably familiar. Some people talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out, but there's a status quo bias that people want to be drawn to something that is close to what they have. Maybe it's a slightly better version of what they have, but they don't really want to move much. There's loss aversion, which is the opposite of how an entrepreneur usually faces things. We tend to be less risk averse than most of the world, but those with loss aversion don't want to miss out, but don't want to make much change. There's a decoy effect. It's kind of that, hey, we're going to recommend three things to you, Nick, but the third thing is a decoy. It's a terrible choice. We're putting it there on purpose, knowing you won't choose it, hoping that you don't think of it very much. Sometimes I call that the American Idol effect when you have three left, that show my age. Uh, there's there's the social proof methodology, which uses lots of different types of elements such as testimonials, different parts of peer pressure. Someone might take our 90-second assessment and we'll say, here's your best financial domain. You're great at how you manage your debt compared to your peers. That's a great positive reinforcement motivator for people. But those who don't respond to that, we also might say, Nick, here's your worst one. Your estate planning is in shambles. You're worse than all your peers by this much. You really need to work on this. And I might use an additional principle from behavioral economics tied to urgency. So those are a few of the principles and the methods used
Yeah.
in behavioral economics. You see those that underlay some of the most effective marketing campaigns out there. Our use of it tied to our engine makes us much more powerful, allows us to leverage um, uh, what is best for people based on what they tell us. So when someone fills out our 90-second assessment as they enter the Thumbscore world, they give us their own sentiment of their own financial state. And we create 50 behavioral insights off of that. These aren't just static pieces of data, Nick. These are actual vectors that show you a direction, a level of momentum or acceleration. They tell us today, 6 months from now, 24 months from now, what that person might have as a financial moment of truth. Maybe it's having a child, buying a house, or simply changing something on their auto insurance policy. It tells us propensities to purchase of different types of products or of our financial education. So we use that to help show them here are your opportunities, Nick, for improving your opportunities in the world for improving your financial health. And some people are receptive to that, but based on their behavior persona and where they're at with those 50 insights, we meet them where they're at. And it's like, hey, we hear you. We're working to understand you. You're working to understand yourself. Here's how we can help. Uh, sometimes we frame it that way. People respond very well. In fact, in decision support, they responded incredibly well.
Yeah. I don't, I'm not sure the typical person realizes how much they're being, how much we're seeing behavioral economics play out in the real world. I think, even shopping on Amazon, David, um, I am much more like if I'm kind of scrolling through, I'm searching for something kind of scrolling through, there's the Amazon choice, right? And then there's the most popular one. And there's a degree of comfort that comes with like, okay, well, other people chose this one, so this might be the right one. And now it's like it's stacking on itself, like it's building its own momentum and just getting stronger and stronger. But there's something legit around providing those, you call them nudges, like ways for to help people sort of simplify their decision making while also reducing the stress of that decision making. And you've got into a whole bunch of them. I'm curious as to, my audience is predominantly insurance professionals, and it is a big topic these days around like how little society understands about insurance. And I keep hearing the word we have to educate people more. It's like that's the wrong nudge. People don't like insurance and they don't want to be educated about insurance either. It's like not a topic that they're interested in, but they are interested in other topics. Can you talk a little bit about the use of behavioral economics to overcome resistance, to overcome defensiveness, to overcome like, oh, I don't care about my auto insurance. I want someone else to just make the decision for me, which by
Mhm.
itself is also a bad decision.
We do live in a digital world where most people of all generations and personas like the self-driven, I'm going to look at my own stuff, do my own research. And your Amazon example is a great analogy. They have condensed their users' world to a very small window, right? You're not going to go spend hours searching
Nope.
for every piece or reading every single review of every option. You're going to stay within the world of the best choice, the highest rated, best star reviews, right? You're going to look at hey, people who looked at this also looked at these four products. You're not going to look at 20 products they looked at, but maybe the four. Just to keep it a really small, condensed world. The level of flavors of any given insurance product, from pet to life or anything between, there's too much. It's not condensed. It's not simplified, as you said. So when we approach someone, it's the right information at the right time, and that's all the information. There's always more, but you know what? People don't want more. People don't want to be told what to do, and they
Hmm.
don't want to make a decision. And so you meet them between those two. You give them a recommendation. The natural credibility we earned based off of the relationship we build on a 90-second assessment is incredible. Our engagement levels border on 90% without us changing what we're doing. It's just our engine meeting people where they're at. Of course, that's what they want, but it's working. When you look at an example of um, the different types of let's pick on renters insurance, that's a low converting product, right? So, for all of you out there with renters insurance or they're selling renters insurance, it's a great product. A lot of people need it. Based off our numbers, depending on your population, anywhere from 30 to 70% of your clients might need renters insurance. However, they don't know it, they don't think about it, it's invisible to them, and they don't understand that they're risking emergency savings. So one of the ways that we approach this is we put all the pieces together. We have six financial domains, not just one. We don't just handle savings or debt or spending. We also look at risk and insurance. We look at estate. We look at the full picture. So that's how we kind of bounce people back to where we want them. Let's talk about emergency savings. The average American has less than $400 of emergency savings. We're in a terrible state, right? You should have 6 months of your expenses emergency savings. So if I went to you and said, "Hey, just go save 6 months of your spending and come back to me, I will never see you again." Instead, what we do at Thumbscore is we say, "Hey, let's look at your monthly subscriptions. Let's find $25 a month that you don't need to be spending right now and start putting that into an emergency bank account." Now I've given you a bite-sized piece you know you can accomplish, and I'm going to keep you accountable to help you accomplish it. Um, you know the numbers. Term life insurance, for example, we look at. I'm an Xer. Xers, boomers, 30+% have life insurance. Think they have enough, but only about 10% of millennials and less of that of Gen Z, right? And why? People say, "Well, it's education." No, it's not. Millennials want to trust. Gen Z want to trust who's talking. And once there's a certain level of trust, just give them the information of one snippet. They want to know how much a month it's going to cost them, how much coverage they're going to get, and how complicated it is to get this thing done so they can move on with their life. That's it. They don't need, look, you have this writer. You know what? If you have this and this factor, maybe you should have a 20% more or less. Or go talk to your employer's sponsors, HR person who doesn't
Hmm.
have the information in front of them and find out what they'll do to help, maybe sponsor a little bit of it. They don't need any of that. They don't care about that. It's really not a money decision. What's interesting, the more brokers we work with in this industry, Nick, the more we understand to the brokers, it's also not about money. We make them a lot more revenue. I can get into that. It's about the experience that the customers have. It's about engaging them where they're at and helping meet the needs
Yeah.
that they have specifically and precisely.
Yeah. And I've just recently written some articles around how agents and brokers can transition themselves to trusted advisor status. And one of
Mhm.
the, you're kind of preaching to the choir here now because that is one of my messages is like, fine, you sell insurance, but people don't want to be sold insurance and they don't want to be lectured about insurance. Or as you said, they don't want to be lectured around like how because they don't have life insurance or renter's insurance, they're putting their family at risk and things like that. So you have to be a little bit more creative and clever around the narrative that you have. So I think what you just said, there's a lesson for agents and brokers around the concise element of the messaging that they're going to need to get more business, but they definitely have to be very careful around like specifically selling insurance and kind of pushing a particular narrative. So when you do work with financial professionals, what's an engagement look like when
Yeah,
you engage with a firm?
yeah, I appreciate you asking that. And just to bounce one more thing on the behavioral economics portion, these financial professionals, they want a better customer experience, but they're locked into the spreadsheets and proposals, their
Yeah,
world. That's what
yeah,
they know.
yeah,
And let's be honest, this world has not changed significantly the past several decades. It hasn't. What can be better is how we approach the humans we serve. And the humans we serve make mental shortcuts. They rely on heuristics. The brain always makes shortcuts based off of it can be
yeah,
past trauma, past decisions, past failures. I got a lot of past failures. My brain tries to make lots of shortcuts. So you want to slow it down and simplify at the same time, which is very difficult to do, particularly in a human space. So when we try to apply those principles, um, often we don't call it education. We might call it touches or nudges, but that's just kind of a uh, how we do it. So how we start off with, let's say, a new broker that's in the benefit space is we'll go in and we'll onboard them. We'll onboard. We'll do like a webinar with some of their people, make sure all their reps understand what's going on, make sure that their support people know what's going on, what their support might be tied to. But really, everything is centered on how we're improving the customer experience for every HR department executive of their enterprise customers, and of course for every employee. Brokers often want to know not how much money am I going to make off you guys, which they will, but they want to know, are you going to improve the experience, and are you going to not disrupt that experience in a negative way?
Mhm.
Am I going to be getting calls from HR customers asking me, why are we asking intrusive questions for financial space, for instance, or why does this person get this recommendation when it's less than what they had the year before? Our engine doesn't care. Our engine's going to give you the best. The best might be a different number than last year, up or down. It's going to give you the best. So they want to know answers to these questions. Is this a good disruption? Is this a negative disruption? We'll do a little bit of training on that to help them understand. Here are our numbers, right? The good thing is we have a track record, and we just go off the track record, so we don't have to promise you something that's in thin air.
Yeah.
For instance, our numbers are when it comes to voluntary products, a year over year, hundreds of thousands of people. What we can provide for you is an adoption rate that's likely to increase at 50% compared to last year. Most people would be happy with a 2 to 3% increase. Our track record is 50% increase in adoption for a voluntary benefit, which is significant, especially since the employee is usually paying for all of the voluntary benefit. And when it comes to voluntary benefits on, let's say, what they select of the actual benefit and the premium amount, we often increase that up to 90% higher than the previous year. Same employee groups side by side, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. That's what we're able to provide to the broker. Say, here's the difference you're going to see. That's without you lifting a finger. That's with people opting in where they want to. This is an optional thing. None of this is required. And they see that performance and they're like, well, we want that, but how do you do that, right? We embed our process into their employee journey. So when we partner with a broker, we help educate them on how we embed with their process. And that's based on how they use. Well, brokers usually are platform agnostic. So guess what? We can embed in other platforms, or we can do it without embedding in anything. They introduce us to the enterprise customers they have. Those enterprise customers introduce us to their world because we give them a corporate level dashboard for themselves as well, kind of a decision support tool at the corporate level. And the more engagement they have with their employees, the better they get. And it doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't cost the broker anything. The employee ends up paying us through whatever products they get, and we take a little bit of piece of that as they go for the transactions. So everybody kind of doesn't have to take financial risk with us. And as we roll this out, we'll do webinars with the broker and their reps for their employees, if their enterprise customers. We'll help them hold the hands of what do we send out to introduce you guys? What are some digital brochures? Those media pieces are pretty simple. At the end of the day, what they'll learn is that every time they go to one of those large um, enrollment situations, that broker is going to realize most of the employees, most of the workers enrolling, if they use Thumbscore, they're going to do it in a much more self-driven fashion and take the load off the work of the broker.
Yeah.
They're going to have a better experience. Uh, uh, they're going to pick more voluntary benefits. They're going to be happier with their medical benefit. And then what happens after enrollment? They get to continue the financial journey and they give us feedback that we can give to the broker. And the broker gets all this behavioral uh, insights at the aggregate level for each one of their employers. So the next year, when they start having those discussions about how do we serve you best, how do we improve your experience, they already have all the data, and that becomes their main sales tool. So you asked me how we roll it out. There's some webinars. There's some hand holding initially. There's going through our track record, telling here's what to expect, and then we either embed inside those bin admin journeys, or we do a non-embedded version that allows them to implement us really simply, and we end up touching every employee.
So employees do change. They will run into life-changing events, marriages, children, lots of things. Um, in your experience, like do you do a constant profile re-examination over time? And in your experience, like how radically do or do not employees change? Like, is your initial profile fairly robust over time? Or do humans change?
Um, you want the philosophical, epistemological answer, or you want the statistical, highly
I think
probabilistic answer, Nick?
statistical. I think
Okay,
statistical.
we'll go statistical. Here we go. Yes, people change. They change more from circumstances beyond their control than other circumstances. But typical reasons we change, right? We change for love, supposedly. We change out of surviving or desperation. We change because of pain, to avoid pain often. When changes happen, we do about a quarterly checkup with all of our thumb scores, as we call them, and gives them a chance to see where they've changed, what's coming up. Our behavioral insights, our initial profile is very robust. Those 50 behavioral insights over time, we've been able
Hmm.
to see just how on point they are, and they're good. They're very good. So when we look at what changes come back, it is often because of those circumstances that accelerated or de-accelerated those propensities to
Yeah.
purchase or those financial life moments that occurred.
So if I can summarize what you said people change, but biases are pretty robust. So once you've like habituated a particular bias, even if you do change, because of outside forces, as you
Mm.
said, which is absolutely true, you still have the bias. Like you're going to change to kind of accommodate, maybe reduce the pain of what it is you're doing. But that bias, you're going to work within the realm of the bias that you already have and kind of move in that direction. And I think that's insightful. Like that's to me, that's insightful from a sales, but I think customer retention, a client retention, an account retention standpoint, knowing that the situation on the ground is going to change, but the way they're going to act and behave towards that is likely to remain pretty stable over time. Did I summarize that correctly?
I believe you did. I believe you did. And if we can stay on this point for just a little bit longer,
Yeah.
you know, a broker, financial planners, anyone in this space, insurance agents, when you're dealing with humans that you serve, um, sometimes they'll use words that actually are kind of a misleading. Like someone can be loyal, but their loyalty is more to their past or what is comfortable to them because it's
Mm,
familiar in their
mm,
past, not because they might want to be loyal to you and to your service, but they're really loyal to what is familiar to their past. There are people who are highly motivated, self-driven individuals. They just refuse to quit, and they'll look at every option, every tool at their disposal. But you might not know what other options they're looking at. It might be their buddy they golf with. It might be um, the mom they sit next to at soccer practice. It could be anything in between. It might be extra pressure from the workplace pushing something that they're looking at. The fact is the life lessons that impact each one of us, they don't appear when things are going well. They appear when people are stressed, when we're stressed. And that change that typically happens because the forces of pressure are moving us a certain direction. Uh, Unless you are really engaged with each individual relationship, it's going to be difficult to know that. Having behavioral insights at your fingertips is a powerful way to shortcut to meeting each one of your customers where they're at. But it's also a way to actually interpret the terms they use
yeah.
to make sure that you really are touching them the way they need. You help people where they're at and you hear them, they will stay. They will purchase more of the products and services that you have. But it really is about meeting that human where they're at first and really helping them.
Yeah, it's actually that's a very similar message that I give to prospects and clients around communication. Like you have to meet them where they're at, and unfortunately, if they're at TikTok, then that's where you got to meet them, and that's where they're gonna be more receptive to the message. That doesn't always go very well, David. Um,
What's wrong with TikTok? I mean,
there's
I
nothing
might
wrong
be a
with TikTok.
pickleball addict, but yeah, TikTok is right up there with all the good tools how to learn how to play pickleball, right?
You're stealing my thunder on one of the questions I was going to ask. I'll save that one for later. Um, so your background, David, how what is your background that led you here? Can you give us kind of a summary of? I mean, we all have, but
Yeah, well, um, I feel like I had a very fortunate childhood. The more I examine it, the more I realize some of the dry performance driven habits I've created over the years are based off of positive and negative things that occurred when I was younger. Really, Nick, I'm just trying to stay sucker free in a world full of lollipops. You know what I mean? But when it comes to my background, a couple of biggest chunks of my background, I helped to lead digital transformation for the Boeing Corporation over a decade ago. And it was an incredible experience, but it really got me hooked on this corporate culture and ability to change piece. Because I think there's a supreme parallel between personal development and culture development within an enterprise that usually takes outside force to make a change. It usually requires a level of disruption and innovation that we cannot possibly come up with our own because we can't see the forest for the trees. There are lots of parallels. And so I've been kind of hooked on that type of um, moment, if you will, that occurs in countless customers I've had on the M&A side, on the energy side, on the tech side, that led me from there to here. So we got to a point where we had a corporate level decision support tool tied to benefits, and we ended up seeing that we could help improve people's individual lives and give some of that guidance to corporations. I tell you, that just pulled me all the way in. You can see the passion. I love getting the chance to help executives improve the lives of their people, but also create an open culture. It's not just, hey, we're going to have direct talk. We're going to be transparent about everything, have good visibility. We're going to encourage different levels of meeting. We're going to smash down and make it a really horizontal management structure. There's all the things you see corporations go in waves of making a change here that lasts for 2 or 3 years, and a change here, and then a reaction to some problem here. The fact is our ability every day to impact the culture of our own team is really the only limiting factor for where our team can go. And that starts with a person in the mirror. And so helping corporations do that is really part of what gets me going.
Yeah,
So when we went from a different tech and different work we did in the wealth space and legal space, pandemic hits, we're like, we need to figure out what we're going to do when we're growing up. Let's help people at the human level. And now we can help corporations at the enterprise level. That's what really helps me apply what I've learned, but also continue growing in that respect.
yeah. Uh, I have a sense my audience are truly insurance nerds, so I can feel your passion even through a Zoom call. It's likely a lot of folks are going to be interested to want to learn more about the particular topic. Are there any sort of like books or things you would direct people to, or do all roads just lead to Daniel Kahneman?
Well, there's lots of great books that I love. From The Gap and the Gain to The Body Keeps a Score to Atomic Habits to um, there's really huge ones, there's small ones. But at the end of and we have white papers. I love white papers. If you have trouble going to sleep at night, read one of our white papers. Maybe it'll help you go to sleep or help you understand how benefits and insurance really intersect. The fact is that um, we limit ourselves when we limit our personal growth, right? Our own ability to change, our own organizations change. So when it comes to the change culture, there's actually something called the Culture Code. That's a fantastic book on that. But aside from just spitting out lots of titles, I encourage people to really dig into behavioral economics, dig into behavioral science, and understand where this is going. Don't just count on the marketing geniuses of the world to infuse that into something that you're doing within your space. Get to know it yourself, because there are many excellent ways to impact yourself, your culture, your team, and particularly your customers with that. I get to use it on the pickleball court. Believe it or not, I get to use it in anything I get to do in our community because you're looking at improving people's lives, which requires change. So understanding how to make change happen is always beneficial.
Yeah. Um, I think it being able to decipher how a human's going to behave is just might be, one of the top powers you can have when I think of, even something as simple as a poker table and the ability of professionals to, watch that twitch in my eye and know like, okay, I'm out. Nick's got probably a pair of aces. He's going crazy on this. That's power, right? Like not power in like the harming of human beings, but it's power in making better decisions around that. So there's a lesson there. And before you steal my thunder for a final time around the particular topic, my final question is, do you think pickleball will displace American football as the country's national pastime?
Oh, I've got old stats on this, but I believe about 40 million Americans play pickleball every day or every week. I think it is a great complement. Something is a pastime because we view it and watch it. Participating in something that is fairly light and friendly to the joints of the body and yet competitive, I think is a great mix. Plus, what I've learned in the pickleball community is it's one of the most engaging and least judgmental sports communities out there. Of course, you have your snobs wherever you have them, but the vast majority, you compare it to about any other sports out there. And I've played football, I've played other sports. You compare any other sport out there, I would say pickleball is the warmest, most welcoming one. I encourage anyone. You don't
Yeah.
need to have any skills to go out and make some friends in this community. You know, I did. I tried it out, put my toes in the water, and then when I had a major life changes kind of happen to me, I just jumped in, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah. I feel, and you get some exercise. So
Oh
it,
yeah,
it it can be good for you. A friend of mine asked me about pickleball yesterday, and I said it when I'm playing it, it feels like a kid's game, and I think that's why so many people enjoy it. Like it does have like tennis, which is probably like a very similar style sport, has a more aggressive element to it. Whereas pickleball is just so much more fun around just like whacking that little wiffle ball back and forth over the net. You see people laughing. You will find some YouTube videos of people getting upset. Those are probably the snobs. But it is a fun game, and I like how you framed it as pastime or what people do to watch. Pickleball's an enjoyment. There aren't 40 million people playing football anymore, so
no, no, and you know what? Every one of our customers, every one of our broker friends and partners, they all have something they enjoy. They do. But the one thing about the pickleball community makes it welcoming is someone who's a pro will play with a brand new player and not even to give them pointers, just because, hey, we'll meet you at your level, we'll have fun, you get a chance to learn something. And I think out here in this space we've got in insurance nerds, we've got incredible pros up here, we got newbies down here, and we're better. We're better when we collaborate. We're better when we work together.
yeah. Please tell me that Thumbscore has Thumbscore branded paddles and wiffle balls. That's a good
They're not
idea.
wiffle balls. They're not wiffle balls, Nick. They're pickleballs.
Okay, close
No, we
enough.
would love to do that. I will tell you this. One of our board members might have started his own pickleball company. So we got to keep it under wraps. But there's big things coming, Nick. There are. And you got to have fun.
Gotta have fun. I love it. Circular rainmaking. It's good stuff. David Thorne from Thumbscore. Such pleasure. Happy holidays to you.
Thanks, Nick. Have a good one.